It is Monday, March 11th, 2024. It's a beautiful day in Detroit, and it's also a beautiful day for the Knee Jerks podcast with Eno, Nick, and Big Al. I'm the Big Al, the equation, Al Beaton, longtime Detroit-based podcaster and blogger. Joining me, as always, are my partners in crime, I guess the best way to put it. First off, Nick Milanovich. Nick, how are we doing tonight?
Not doing too bad. It's a nice, typical rainy day in Seattle in March, and which is just fine with me. I don't like although I don't like that daylight savings time deal. So,
yeah, we can have a discussion about that later. And always joining me is the man who knows a lot of things about a lot of things. That would be Greg Eno of the Greg Eno Substack, and we will talk about what he wrote about this week a little later in the show. But Greg, I know we're on a time limit here, so why don't we get right to the chase? We have a special guest tonight.
Absolutely. We've been wanting to have Coach Creighton on our show for quite some time. And our relationship with Coach Chris Creighton goes back. I'll never forget this. I was in my office. It was a summer afternoon in 2014. I had written a piece about EMU football. And it was shortly after they had hired Coach. And I was talking about, me being an alumni, of course, I was talking about, some guarded optimism about the hire, and they had just come off the Ron English debacle and so forth. And that article caught Coach's eye somehow, and their department reached out to me and said that he liked the article. And I said, well, that's great. Would he come on our show? And the folks at Eastern said, absolutely. And that started now almost a 10-year relationship we've had with Coach Creighton, who's been a friend of the Knee Jerks since then. And Coach, thanks so much for, first of all, reaching out to me way back then, and secondly, for being such a good friend of the show.
Oh yeah, no, I appreciate the relationship, and I'm excited about talking to you guys tonight.
That's great,
Nick. I didn't know you were from Seattle, Nick. That's where I grew up.
Oh, I saw that in your bio. I actually grew up in Dearborn, Michigan, and that's how I got connected with these two guys. And but I think you and I also lived some other place very similar, Central Iowa.
Oh, no kidding.
I'm a Iowa State grad. So,
okay. All right.
So that's where I went to grad school. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great.
So,
love it.
That's, of course, reference to Coach's time at Drake, which led to before EMU. Coach, thanks for being here. I last time we were together, we're kind of basking in the glow of the 2022 season, a terrific bowl win, the Potato Bowl. We were all giddy. I, as an Eastern Michigan guy, was beside myself. And let's face it, 2023 was disappointing. I'm not afraid to say it. I think you would say the same thing. We'll get your take on it. But 6-7, did go to a bowl game, got blown out in the bowl. What a difference a year makes. But really, beyond that, Coach, I just think what that disappointment that fans had in 2023 shows, in a way, is, to me, I look at it as a positive. It shows that you have raised the bar now, the standard at Eastern, where before you got here, if we won a couple of games, we were happy. Now you've raised the standards where I wouldn't say you've spoiled us, but we expect more now out of this program. And I know you expect more out of the program as well. So can you talk a little bit about 2023 and the contrast between that and 2022?
Yeah. So no, appreciate it. There's so many things, that go into it, but I'll give you my take. This time last year, bowl rings had been ordered. Spring ball had just started, and we're getting ready for our ring ceremony. Two guys invited to the combine, had guys drafted, coming off of a 9-win season, and super optimistic about 2023. There's no question. And I've done this for a number of years now, and it's going to be hard to convince me. It has been for 33 years, and it will be for the next however many, that, playing from in front or on top, it doesn't work. And so, look, I've won back-to-back championships before. I've won 3 in a row before, but every year, if you don't start over and if the mindset isn't that we are having to climb back up the hill that we think we're still on, you're in trouble. And I'm not saying that our mindset was completely in the wrong. We were trying to just, continue to get better and take that next last step, to winning a MAC championship. But, we didn't play very well offensively. And we played really well defensively. And in the 13 games, 10 and a half of those games, we played really good defense. We played really good special teams, but just weren't able, on the field to get things going offensively. And, like you said, it ended up, being disappointing.
All good programs, though, you've had all that success at Drake and you've built what you've built at Eastern, but all good programs sometimes just have that 1 year where you just don't fire. It just doesn't work. There's just a lot. Even the great Don Shula 1 year in '76, I think, was 6-8. I mean, there's just some years where it just things happen. The bounces don't go your way and so forth. And I know you're going to put that behind you. But you mentioned the offense, and I know one of the big critiques of last year, as I was kind of monitoring Eastern Michigan Twitter and Eastern Michigan social media, was they were really the fans were, and of course fans can be a little bit off the deep end, but they were concerned about the quarterback play. And what say you about that, and what can we look for in 2024 behind center?
Well, in 22, Austin Smith started 4 games. I mean, he came into the Arizona State game, I want to say the end of the first quarter, beginning of the second quarter, and helped lead us to a victory at Arizona State. Played some really good football. And so when Taylor Powell first went to the Carolina Panthers and then ended up being, rookie of the year for the Hamilton Tiger Cats up in Canada, we did not go out and get a transfer quarterback. We said, we've got Austin, had just finished his redshirt freshman year and had played really well. And so, listen, I love Austin. He decided, to move on from our program, but he is a great human being and he's a really good quarterback. We just weren't, like you said, it wasn't clicking for us. And we just did not get production out of that position. And it's always a group project. I mean, it's always a group project. But I will say, just moving forward, as of January, we have 3 new quarterbacks in our program. So today we just finished our first spring practice and got a transfer out of Rutgers and Buffalo that we faced twice, and Cole Snyder, who has a ton of experience. We think he's a really good football player. Drew Viato, we recruited out of high school here, was committed to us, and then Minnesota came and offered him after his commitment to us, went to Minnesota his freshman year. Day one of the transfer portal, he contacted us, was in the portal and contacted us. And so he's here. And then our freshman incoming quarterback came early. Instead of coming in June, he enrolled early in January. And so those guys, I mean, today was practice 1. And that never looks like it's going to look in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and on. But we're really glad that those guys are here and are very confident that we're going to have productive quarterback play.
We're talking with Eastern Michigan football coach Chris Creighton here on the Knee Jerks. I'm Greg Eno from my Greg Eno Substack, and Big Al Beaton is here, and Nick Milanovich is here as well. And we're bringing Nick in right now. What you got for Coach Creighton?
Yeah, I got a maybe more general question. Is you were kind of mentioning that with a few of your newer players, is like how in the last few years, because the transfer portal is sort of a newer thing, at least as quite as active as it's been active in the last few years, more so than it has ever been. Like, how has that changed the way you approach kind of building up a team and dealing with transfer, and maybe even as far as the topic of NIL money and things like that?
I'll just tell you this, it's very, very different. And so, we're embracing it. it is what it is. And so, we're trying to win. We lost the transfer portal battle. This is all my subjective opinion. We won it 3 years ago. We won it 2 years ago. We didn't win it a year ago. And I can tell you we had 24 new players here in January this year, and feel really good about that group. There's a whole nother round coming at the end of April. And when I say that, that doesn't mean we're going to lose anybody, but I mean, I don't know if it's wise to think that you may not, right? So from April 15th to April 30th, it can all happen again. And so, yeah, I mean, we're just attacking it. I think you're right with NIL. I think that exacerbates, the issue with the transfer portal, because there's always, the lure, of potential more money somewhere else. And people got to be super careful with that. But that is part of the reality. And then I will throw one more cog into the machine here, and that is we are still dealing with COVID. And what I mean by that is it's not until the 25 season, that that will have run its course. So, for 5 years, you're going to have guys who have an extra year of eligibility. And remember, the academic clock didn't stop, but you didn't lose a year of eligibility. And so guys are able to graduate now with 2 years left, right? And so I just think, we lost one of our guys this last cycle, and, he just said, man, I've got my master's. I've been here for 5 years. I've got one season left. I want to try, something new. And I hated to hear it, honestly, but it's, when you take a step back, I mean, there was a part of me that I still hated to hear it. I'll just say that. But so that's part of it as well. And so it's very different. I think that staffs have to think about building a team every 6 months. And if you don't think that way, then you can get caught with your pants down. And that's no bueno.
Yeah, I think when you mentioned that, I remember reading, I don't know what team that was, but a guy got his 7th year of eligibility, or it was granted by the NCAA, which is kind of so bizarre. Usually, players will be, 3-4 years and that's it. So, yeah,
not these days. No, 7 years is actually, I'd say, quasi common.
Okay.
All you're doing right now is throwing in, a medical injury, a medical red shirt on top of a normal red shirt now. And that's how you get your 7th year because of COVID.
Okay.
Interesting that you say that. Interesting that you bring that up, because I so many of us have kind of, you don't totally move on from something like that, but it's further and further in the recesses of a lot of people's minds. And interesting that you bring that up about COVID. Coach, this is for some people who may not know, UMass, University of Massachusetts, will be joining the MAC in 2025, and your opening game in 2024 is there. Talk about UMass's addition, and is that a good thing for the program? Are you neutral about it? What do you think about it?
People a lot more important than me are making all those decisions. I know that we've played them 3 years in a row now. And like you said, we're finishing that cycle at UMass in week 1 this next year. And so, I don't want to speak for them, but I think that people have really wanted to be a part of conferences. They certainly, they've been in the MAC before. They play a lot of MAC teams every year as an independent, trying to get games. And so I think, football perspective, I think it makes sense for them. It makes it an odd number for us. Right. We've just done a realignment, of our own conference, not in terms of an addition or subtraction of universities, but we've gone away this year for the first time from the East and the West divisions, and are going to be playing what they're calling 4 pods. So you play the other two teams in your pod every year. So we'll play Central and Western every year,
Right.
but then there'll be, just a rotation of all the other programs, and there's not an East and a West. So there's just a lot of changes in college football. And now there's changes in the MAC as well.
Sure. We're talking with Coach Chris Creighton of the Eastern Michigan Eagles football program. I'm Greg Eno from my gregeno.substack.com and at Greg Eno on Twitter. Nick Milanovich, who you just heard, and Big Al is here. Al Beaton, let's bring him in now. What you got for Coach Creighton?
Yeah, Coach. Ever since you started joining us a few years ago, I know there's been a lot of renovations to your facilities there, and they're still ongoing. I know. I thought maybe you want to tell us what's going on at Rynearson right now, and also the updates on Maxx Crosby Field.
Yeah, so that's probably the major one. We our bubble, our indoor facility, we are restructuring that this summer, which we're real excited about. It's got brand new turf in it, but they're going to just reset that, all the climate control. It's going to be a really good addition. But literally in 2 weeks, we are going to be ripping out the track here in the factory, Rynearson Stadium. And I want to say this because this sometimes gets misconstrued. Our track program is a dominant track program.
Has been for decades, yes.
For decades, since the 1968 Olympics,
Hayes
Eastern
Jones,
Michigan has had a man or a woman in the Olympics, in the Summer Olympics, ever since 1968. And so they just won another championship a couple of weeks ago. So they are going to be getting their own brand new standalone track stadium, which they have earned and they deserve. And from our perspective, getting that track out, we are going to re-turf the entire stadium. So wall to wall, so to speak, and new green turf, and then new gray turf on the field. And it's really going to pop. And I think aesthetically, it's going to be incredible. And then even just for fans in the stands, even though they physically won't be closer to the action, there just won't be that red, visual barrier, if you will. So I think folks are going to feel closer to the action. Max and his wife, Rachel, a soccer player here at Eastern Michigan, both, made that donation to us to make that happen. And we are so grateful. He's been amazing to us.
You talk about when you talk about building programs, one of the things that is part of that is legacy. And I want to talk, Coach, about a couple of people that have been part of the program under your guidance. Max, right now, we're talking about him right now, Maxx Crosby. And I don't know how many people know this, but Maxx Crosby was, I think you told me, Eastern Michigan was his only offer, which when you think about how dominant he is now in the NFL, it's unfathomable to think there was a time when nobody wanted Maxx Crosby except you. Talk about that whole scenario.
Yeah, I give credit to Coach Brad McCaslin, who was our defensive coordinator at the time, but went down and found Max and recruited him out of Dallas. We were. Now, Max grew up in Michigan, and so it's a longer story, but I think it was 12 when he moved down to Dallas, Texas. So he and a childhood friend both came. We invited him to come to our camp, that first year to see what they had, and he was a really long 6'5" and trying to basketball player. So he and Hunter Andrews came to camp, reunited childhood buddies, and we were over in the old convocation center and offered both those guys after the camp and got them both to come, and we sure are glad that we did. So a lot of credit there goes to Brad McCaslin. Max really blossomed and continues to blossom.
Absolutely. He's heading into the prime of his career, and it's scary to think how much better he can be. We saw it here in Detroit when the Raiders were in town. He's almost unblockable, unstoppable. The other person I want to talk about, Coach, that you brought in with you when you came to Eastern in 2014, Kalen DeBoer, who was your first, I believe, offensive coordinator. And Kalen is now the head football coach at Alabama, no less. How much pride do you as a coach? We talk about coaching trees. and there's a tree for this guy, a tree for that guy. We're starting to see now a Creighton tree. And how much pride do you take in Kalen?
I'm super proud of Kalen, but I don't know how the tree thing works, but it's very uncomfortable. I'm just proud to have worked with him. I'd been an offensive coordinator along with being a head coach for 17 years when I got here, and knew that I was going to have to be the full-time culture coach. And so, Kalen, I just said, look, I need you to be able to do this and to do it. Our offensive line coach is Ryan Grubb, who was his offensive coordinator at Washington. And then for 2 weeks was with him at Alabama, and now is the offensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks. So I think that we were in pretty good hands with those two. And people may not have known it at the time, but, those two guys obviously were fantastic. Kalen just texted me last night a picture of our first year when we were in the bubble and it was freezing cold. And, we really had, and he's mentioned this both at Fresno and Washington, that, his time here was special. He put everything he had into this place. And if you remember, in the spring of 2016, it was as bad and as negative as it's ever been, right? There was the national story about, going to Division II or getting rid of the program. Our faculty had sort of risen up. So I've got coach. I just finished 2 really bad seasons, even though as a program, we knew that we were building it and that the relationships and the culture was coming along. My whole staff is out on the road in April, and it's in every major paper and it's on TV. Our coaches are going into high schools, and head coaches are handing them a copy of the Seattle Times, right, or the Washington Post, and that next year is when we had a winning record and went to the Bahamas Bowl. And so Kalen and Ryan Grubb were a part of that, and it really was a magical year for us.
We're talking with Eastern Michigan football coach Chris Creighton here in the Knee Jerks. Let's bring Nick Milanovich back in. What you got for Coach Creighton?
Yeah, well, you took my last question, so I'm going to make one up on the spot here. I actually did want to ask the coach something, and this is just from a fan's perspective. And there was this whole big stink about sign stealing and all of this stuff going on, and many people chiming in. I don't want to ask a question about like what blew up this past fall, but just from a general standpoint, how do coaches? Is that really a thing in college football that is concerning to a team, to a coach? Is it something you just account for in kind of your daily routine, kind of like we would lock our car doors or our houses at night or when we're at the store or something, and just not make a big deal about it in general, but it's just routine?
So my first head coaching job was at an NAIA school in Kansas called Ottawa University. And prior to that, I was an assistant at Manchester College in Indiana. I was in a conference with Wabash College and DePaul University in Indiana. And I will never forget, this was national news, where Wabash accused, this is in the late 90s, Wabash accused DePaul of stealing signals. And it was national news. And like, are you kidding me? And so here we are 25 years later. And to answer your question, the way that it is that, that every staff is watching TV copies of the games and doing everything they can to steal signals. So that was what was accepted, Now, if live scouting was happening, that is not accepted, right? And so, there's always sort of another level or something next. But I remember when, just the decency of, that's not what you do when it was national news. Now, absolutely, everybody is trying to steal signals. And so, the NCAA is going to be making some significant changes. And like the NFL, it sounds like we're going to be doing the coach to player communication through the helmet. So that's all being worked out right now. But, they hope that will, quell the sign stealing because, you're just going to be talking directly to the quarterback. It will, however, affect programs differently because for no huddle, programs, there still has to be, a way to communicate with each other. And so, but for the huddling programs, they'll certainly benefit from it.
Will it make things? I would assume it makes things a little bit easier too, and maybe help with any kind of miscommunications. Or is that?
Yeah, no, it'd be interesting. I've never coached in the NFL, so that the timing goes off in the last 15 seconds. I know that in this last year's bowl game season, some teams experimented, and just some of the research that we've heard from those that have done it. It was interesting that the coach to player communication sometimes had more to do with game management than it did with, actually just giving the formation, the motion, the shift, and the play. Something that maybe people don't first think about. You're giving them the play, of course, but hey, it's 3rd and 8. Take what they give you. Or, hey, remember, we're getting down inside 2 minutes. So, there is some sort of on the field coaching in terms of game management that, and I thought that was interesting.
Okay.
Kind of harkens back to the old days where the quarterbacks would call plays, believe it or not, back in the day. We're running out of time here. Big Al Beaton, and you got one more for Coach Creighton before we let him go.
Yeah, just maybe another quick overview of college football with the playoff expansion. There's now talk of going to 14 teams. We'll see if that actually comes to fruition. But do you think the expansion is going to give any more extra opportunities to the group of 5 teams that really, I think, deserve a little more exposure and attention from the playoff committee?
Well, so I think it's the next 2 years. We're at 12, right? And then there's another TV deal. So I don't know what's going to happen with the 14. I mean, we're just still figuring out the 12. But as it is right now for the next 2 years, the most highly rated group of 5. By the way, which administrator was in the meeting that accepted the name Group of 5?
Right.
You have the Power 5. Can we not be the Fantastic 5 or the Phenomenal 5? I really don't want to meet that person, but whoever is the most highly rated or ranked team will be in. And so somebody's going to be, have an awesome opportunity.
This is before we let you go. One more for you. I'm sitting here thinking about the last period of time we've known each other, and you're going now into your 11th. I can't believe I'm saying this. Your 11th year at Eastern, and I can't believe it. I, honest to God, cannot believe you're going into your 11th year. Do you ever pause? I know you probably do, but do you ever pause and think, gosh, this is the longest I've ever, first of all, this is the longest I've ever been at a place. That's the first thing. Yeah. And secondly, how much longer you would like to be at this place.
Yeah. Man, God is good. We had our first spring ball practice today, and I took the very beginning of the team meeting and just said, guys, have you ever thought that there's only 132 of us on the planet? Whether you're a part of the offensive line, whether you're an offensive graduate assistant, whether you're calling plays or you're the quarterback, man, we're just so fortunate. And, I'm so fortunate to be here. We had 2 juniors who were visiting today, recruits. I asked them how old they were. They were both Michigan natives. They're from the area. They're 16 years old. I grabbed their shoulders. I said, "You were 5 years old when I got the job here at Eastern Michigan." And we weren't very good when you were 5 and 6, but when you became 7, we got a little better. So it is crazy. Super thankful, for the opportunity and all the growth that we've been able, to have through the years. And man, there's a lot more to go.
Absolutely, there is. Well, Coach, we're all behind you. The Eastern Michigan family, the fans, we're all behind you. Me as an alum, you know me. I'm always texting you. I'm always showing you my support. We here at the Knee Jerks, you're always welcome. We're so thankful you do this for us every year. And good luck, my friend. Have a good 2024, okay?
Hey, I really appreciate it, guys. I really do. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Right on.
See you, Coach. Take care.
Yeah. Hey, guys. Thanks a lot, man. It's fun talking
Nice
to you.
meeting you, Coach.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great meeting you.
All right.
See ya.
Thank you, Coach. We'll see you
All right.
soon.